Hi, my name is Travis Granberg with Cottage Design, and I'm going to walk you through the presentation that we put together for your community in Cypress. So I think the best way to start this off is to think about, to really address the big picture of why we got involved in this project. You guys have a lot of grass throughout your community, and this grass is somewhat a high maintenance factor and is also a high water factor. And what we want to do is provide a solution to these problems by introducing plant material that can survive and thrive where this grass used to be, while also complementing your architecture. And I think that's really an important note to touch on is your Tudor-inspired architecture that is throughout your community. And one design motif that we love to use with a Tudor-style house would be the Cottage Garden. And the Cottage Garden is known for being varied in heights of varying heights of plant material, varying colors of plant material, and really just adding like this informal beauty to a landscape. Now, typically that's a hard thing to do for a community in my experience, a cottage garden has higher maintenance and maybe a lot of cutting back in the winter, but we wanted to introduce a plant palette that would provide you with those opportunities of varied heights and colors and mixtures of plants, and also be low maintenance and low water at the same time. So what we've come up with is what we're calling the Plant Tapestry. The Plant Tapestry is 3 different plants that we've chosen that are low growing. They spread via rhizomes. So give you a breakdown of that. That means you could plant them and the rhizome will spread across on the soil and then pop up another plant of the same species. And what we want to do is plant 3 of those plants as your main foundation in these beds and let them kind of intermingle and become this variation in color and textures that you would get from a cottage landscape. Now, to kind of bring some order and really address what I think is important in the community, and that's consistency. You want to feel like you're walking through the community and you're a part of the community while looking at the architecture, obviously, and the landscape. So what we want to introduce throughout Larwin mostly is a consistent evergreen plant that will be planted up and down Larwin that will be this consistent factor to this very tapestry, which is mostly, your front foundation planting. The plant that we want to introduce is called the bush sunflower. It's a great evergreen plant. Once a year, around this time actually, it blooms completely yellow, and it's really beautiful. And more importantly, is it's serving as this structural foundation for us to connect throughout your community. So in review, you have your plant tapestry, which gives us the variation of different plant material and color and flowers. And then you have the consistent bush sunflower that spreads throughout your community. And now I'm going to walk you through the board so you can kind of see how this design concept applies throughout the community, and then touch on some other plants that will support this idea as well. So, starting at the top left, we have the main render. Now, this is Denny and Larwin. So here's your overall map of the entire property, and you can kind of see we have symbols allocated, colors allocated, and all of these represent different areas and different moments that you could reference on this plant legend. So if you're ever wondering like, I wonder what's happening there, you could check this plan, check the legend, and then find where this legend applies to the larger plant groupings. So in this render, this is kind of a unique situation and a fun one in the sense that we have Denny Street running up here, and then this is Larwin, your main avenue. You're looking at the corner, and one thing we notice is that there's no real screening coming from Denny while looking at your community. And so one thing that we really want to incorporate is some smaller accent trees on this corner. And we have some options for those trees, but overall, we want to introduce more flowering trees because that's helping us still maintain with that cottage look and theme that we're going for your community. You can see the trees, and then that carries along. You can kind of see an artistic expression of the tapestry, and then you can see the focal plant, the bush sunflower moving across and down the street. Up top, you have accent trees. This is kind of where you get to build your own story. And you might love all three of these and want all three of them used in your community, or you might want just one. I think the way we're designing, we could do both, or we could break it out by block. Really, there's options there. I just encourage you to look at these plants and research them and let me know what you think about them. Upright foundation. Okay, upright foundations are mostly going to be this transition from the tapestry to the building. We don't really want to have low plant material hit the building. It's kind of a harsh transition. So we want some foundation plants in between there that will then kind of soften that experience. So here we have some that are taller, but we also have another category over here that's some smaller sizing. And we can mix between both of those to give it more height change and variation, or if there's a window, obviously we would want to go with some more foundation shrubs in front of that instead of a taller shrub. Moving on to breezeway planting. So breezeway planting, once again, more options, but they're mostly grasses, and really you look at the plan and you'll notice they're mostly around where the pool fencing are. This is a cool moment where we can plant something and the wind can come across, blow it, and move the grasses in the wind, and it's kind of this pretty moment, and it's also nice because the grasses stay low, and so you still have complete visibility into those pools for safety. Coming to the plant tapestry. So the plant tapestry, obviously I've talked about it already, but it's a really fun moment and one that really kind of ties this whole project in together, not only from a beautiful cottage garden standpoint, but from a financial side, it's affordable to plant these species and then let them spread and fill in over time. So a budget saver as well. I have the plants listed up here, and then also a quick diagram that shows the wildlife and ecology that's being drawn in, and then you could kind of follow the plant. So here it is flowering, it goes through the soil and pops up. Once again, it goes through the soil and pops up again. So you could understand in a diagrammatic way of how this will work. Here we have the Larwin Greenway, what we're calling this render. So this is taken, you follow these arrows, right outside this clubhouse actually. You look down this street, and in this render you could really see how big of an impact that would be to connect all of these greenway corridors. It's almost like what you have right now as far as the grass, but we're trying to do that in a more colorful and distinct way. So this is another artistic expression of this bush sunflower moving down the street and really adding this life to this street. Accent plants. Accent plants you'll find is more of a support for that cottage garden. They're not evergreen. Well, some of them are, but not all of them are evergreen, but most of the time they flower seasonally. So what we wanted to do was set up an opportunity to add more color and height variation, but in selective moments. Most of the time they're supporting the focal plant, or they're supporting the foundation shrubs. They're sort of in middle ground and will really be viewed as part of the tapestry throughout the community. The mounting ground cover, so these I think are best served in locations that somewhat border your community. Here we have Larwin running across. You'll find them mostly up against the walls in the back, and the reason they're there is those are sometimes some hard to plant in situations. So those mounting ground covers can be planted and then they can spread like up to 6 feet. The reason we don't want to bring these into the whole community like we did the planting tapestry is that they do spread 6 feet, so they do become a maintenance requirement as far as they could grow across the sidewalk, whereas the tapestry is 100% limited by your sidewalk and your buildings. And don't worry about tapestry roots because they are too soft to cause any damage or anything like that. So it's really, they are limited by their confined box. I think, yes, we're on the internal courtyard. So one thing that's important in this whole redesign of the community is maintaining your grass areas. So on the legend, you'll see that all of the center courtyards for the grass areas are maintained. The only grass areas that we're pulling away are the ones that face pretty much Larwin Street. And that's to get the playing and the activation out from the street and more towards the inner courtyards where you have ample room to actually play. And it just gets, you know, for the most part, kids from playing off a street adjacent sidewalk. This render is another artistic expression of that. It's also demonstrating how we want to bring trees, accent trees again, once again, not large trees, but smaller trees that can flower and activate the space throughout these internal courtyards. So you can see we have the tapestry up front, we have probably some, drawing a blank, accent plants, and then our foundation plants in the back, and then you could see some small tree canopies developing. And obviously this would be like 20 years down the road when they reach this height, but really initially trying to get some trees that stay small, smaller than 20 feet, 15 feet. I think that's a good summary. So in review, what we're doing is we're trying to save costs, number one, save costs on watering, save costs on maintenance. We're trying to bring in a sense of beauty to the community, raise the property values, and, you know, more importantly, by doing these simple things, using a lot of these plants that we're recommending are natives, you're going to bring in a ton of ecology and a lot of natural water systems that you don't have to focus on. And, you know, natives are sometimes a lot easier, the ones we're specifying, a lot easier to maintain. So you bring all those in and you're going to get the ecology. You're going to get the birds, you're going to get the butterflies, the native birds, and basically create some free entertainment right outside your window. Thank you for your time.